The alien city of Loranes glimmered like a field of stars, floating above a sea of clouds. It was said that their world had no need for night. The sky itself carried the light of the twin moons, bathing everything in soft silver. The people of this world were known as the Valari, tall, graceful beings with skin that shimmered faintly and eyes that reflected the galaxy like mirrors. Among them lived a young Valari girl named Asera. She was quiet by nature, known more for her curiosity than her strength. While most Valari spent their days in disciplined learning or combat training, Asera was different. She spent hours by the crystal lakes, sketching alien birds and studying the stars. Her teachers often sighed, saying she lacked focus. But her mother, a respected scientist, believed Asera's mind worked differently, and sometimes that difference meant destiny. One day, an unexpected event shook the floating city. A small ship, ancient in design and scarred by re-entry, broke through the atmosphere and crash-landed near the western ridge. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The Valari Council immediately sent scouts to investigate. Asera's mother was among them, and Asera, though not allowed to leave the city, found herself drawn toward the scene. For generations, the Valari had believed they were alone, the only intelligent species to rise from the dust of creation. But that day proved them wrong. When the scouts returned, they carried with them a survivor. A human. The being was shorter than most Valari, his body stronger but less elegant. His clothes were torn, his face marked by exhaustion and bruises, yet his eyes, deep and strangely calm, caught everyone's attention. The council kept him in isolation for safety. They called him Eli, after he introduced himself in a language that their translators barely understood. Asera's mother, who studied alien biology, was assigned to examine him. But Asera, curious and bold, found her own way inside the restricted zone. She told herself she only wanted to see him, to understand the stories her mother whispered about the strange visitor from the stars. But when she finally looked through the transparent barrier separating his room from the observation hall, something inside her froze. Eli was sitting on a bench, studying a holographic tablet, trying to make sense of the Valari symbols. His movements were slow, careful, as if he feared breaking the air itself. He wasn't like the soldiers in the Valari tales who conquered worlds. He looked tired, human in every possible way. Asera's heart began to beat faster, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she couldn't look away. When he noticed her reflection in the glass, Eli lifted his head. Their eyes met. For a second, the world around her seemed to vanish. The hum of the energy walls faded. The whispers of the guards disappeared. It was as if only their two souls existed, separated by glass and galaxies. Asera quickly turned away, her silver hair flowing behind her like liquid light. She pressed her palm against her chest. The strange rhythm in her heart frightened her. Valari emotions were meant to be steady, calm as moonlight. But now her heart raced wildly, almost human in its speed. She hurried home, trying to forget. But she couldn't. That image of his eyes, those strange, steady eyes filled with warmth, stayed with her. Later that night, Asera overheard her mother speaking with another scientist. "His body resists our scans," her mother said softly, "and yet his cells adapt faster than any species we've studied. It's as if his entire being was built for survival," the other scientist replied. "Maybe that's why his people survived where others didn't. Humans, they might be far more dangerous than they appear." Asera felt conflicted. She didn't sense danger from him, only a quiet strength. Something about Eli felt pure, honest. The next day she returned to the research dome again. This time she brought a sketchbook, hoping to draw him from afar. But as she sat near the glass wall, Eli noticed her again. Instead of ignoring her, he smiled. A soft, tired smile, but one that made Asera's hands tremble so much that her pencil slipped. He pointed at her drawing and tilted his head as if asking what it was. She hesitated, then slowly lifted her sketchbook to show him the page. It was a drawing of the twin moons above the Valari city. Eli nodded and traced a small circle in the air, then pointed upward, miming the moon. Somehow, through gestures and glances, they began to understand each other. That day turned into a silent conversation of hand signs and sketches. She drew pictures of her world, He drew simple shapes that reminded her of faraway stars. By the time the guards came to escort her away, Eli pressed his palm against the glass, his expression calm but grateful. Without thinking, Asera placed her hand against his from the other side. And again, something inside her shifted. It was not fear, not curiosity, but a warmth that spread through her entire body, deep and unexplainable. That night, Asera lay awake, staring at the glowing ceiling of her room. Her heart refused to calm down. Her people often spoke of the bond, a rare ancient connection that sometimes formed between souls of great difference, a link that could transcend thought and even time. But such stories were myths. Still, she couldn't stop wondering. Why did one look from a human make her feel like her entire world had changed? Elsewhere in his containment room, Eli sat by the glass wall again. He too was thinking of her, though he didn't understand the Valari language. Something in that girl's eyes told him that not everyone on this planet saw him as a stranger. For the first time since his crash, Eli didn't feel alone. Neither of them knew that this small moment, one look between two beings from different worlds, would one day change the fate of both their species. Days passed, but Asera couldn't forget the human boy behind the glass. His eyes followed her even in her dreams. There was something gentle about him, something she didn't understand but wanted to. Her mother noticed her distraction. "You've been quiet lately," she said one morning while studying a holographic sample. "Is something troubling you?" Asera hesitated. "Mother, the human. What will happen to him?" Her mother sighed. "The council is still deciding. Some want to study him further. Others think he should be sent away from Loranes. They say humans are unpredictable." Asera lowered her gaze. "He doesn't seem dangerous." "That may be true," her mother replied, "but sometimes fear decides faster than truth." That sentence stayed with Asera all day. She knew fear could blind even the wisest minds. She had seen how quickly the Valari guards flinched whenever Eli moved. To them, he was a mystery, and mysteries were dangerous. Later that evening, Asera couldn't stop herself. She returned to the observation dome again. The guards were fewer at night, and she had learned their patterns. With a light step, she entered the outer corridor and stood before the glass barrier once more. Eli was awake, sitting near the transparent wall. When he saw her, his face brightened a little. He stood up slowly and approached the glass, pressing his palm to it just like before. Asera smiled softly. She took out her sketchbook again and sat down on the floor, showing him a drawing she had made, a rough image of Earth, based on what she had heard from the scientists. She pointed at it, then at him, asking silently if that was his home. Eli looked surprised for a moment, then nodded. He touched his chest and mouthed the word, "home." The sound was strange, but Asera understood. She pointed at the drawing again, then gestured around herself, indicating the Valari world. "Loranes," she said quietly. He smiled and repeated, "Loranes." Her heart skipped. He had spoken her world's name, and somehow, it felt like a bridge had formed between two planets. For a long time, they simply sat on opposite sides of the glass, sketching small pictures and pointing at the stars visible through the dome ceiling. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time Asera realized that silence could also be a language. But peace never lasts long in a world ruled by fear. The next morning, the council gathered. Asera wasn't allowed inside, but she waited outside the chamber where her mother and other scientists spoke with the leaders. Voices rose and echoed through the crystal halls. One of the counselors said, "This human survived a crash that should have vaporized him. His body adapts faster than any creature we've seen. He could be a weapon in disguise." Another added, "Our ancestors warned us of outer beings. We must protect our kind before they bring ruin." Her mother's calm voice replied, "He has shown no aggression. He speaks, he listens, he learns. Maybe he is proof that we are not alone in the universe." But the others didn't agree. The final decision was harsh. The human was to be relocated to a barren moon away from their cities until the council decided his fate. When Asera heard this, she felt her chest tighten. Sending him away meant losing him forever. That night, she made a choice that frightened even herself. She waited until her mother was asleep, then quietly took her access card. She wrapped herself in a gray travel cloak and slipped through the transport tunnels until she reached the secure area. When she entered, Eli looked surprised but relieved. He could see the worry in her face. "I have to go soon," she said softly, though she knew he couldn't understand her words, but maybe he could understand her tone. She pressed her hand to the glass again. "They want to move you. Far away." Eli frowned, then shook his head slowly. He could tell something was wrong. Desperate, Asera picked up her small holographic pad and drew a sketch, a simple image of the moon and an arrow leading away from their planet. She pointed at him, then at the moon. His expression darkened with understanding. He mouthed a single word. "Why?" Asera's throat tightened. "They're afraid," she whispered. "But I'm not." He couldn't hear her, yet somehow he seemed to understand. His eyes softened, that same calm, human warmth that had touched her before. She didn't know why she did it, but she whispered, "I'll find a way." The next morning, the city was filled with movement. A transport vessel was prepared near the western docks. Scientists and guards surrounded Eli, ensuring he wouldn't resist. Asera stood far away, hidden behind the crowd. She watched as Eli walked with quiet dignity. He didn't fight. He didn't shout. He simply looked at the sky, and for a brief second, his gaze found hers among the crowd. He smiled again, and that same small, tired smile that broke her heart. When the vessel lifted off, vanishing into the clouds, Asera felt an emptiness she couldn't describe. The city seemed quieter, the air colder. Even the twin moons looked dull that night. Days turned into weeks. Asera tried to return to her old life, but nothing felt the same. She studied, she drew, but her thoughts always drifted to that faraway moon. She wondered what he was doing. Was he safe? Was he lonely? Then one day her mother called her into the laboratory. "Asera," she said, her tone serious. "Something strange happened." "What do you mean?" Her mother showed her a hologram, a signal received from the moon base. "He repaired one of our broken transmitters," her mother said. "Alone. He even sent a message in a simple wave pattern. It's not threatening, it's like a greeting." Asera's eyes widened. Eli had found a way to say hello across the stars. That night she sat by the window and looked toward the moon. She whispered softly, "I see you, Eli." Unseen by anyone else, one of the communication screens flickered on. For a few seconds, a small glowing signal pulsed, steady, rhythmic, and alive. Eli was sending her a message. She couldn't hear his words, but the pattern was clear. One long pulse, one short. Over and over. It was like a heartbeat, and in her chest, her heart answered. She pressed her hand against the window, whispering, "I'm here." In that quiet moment between worlds, neither of them knew they had just begun something far greater than friendship. A connection that would soon test both species' understanding of trust, courage, and what it truly meant to be human. Weeks passed since the human, Eli, had been sent to the moon base. Life in Loranes slowly returned to normal for everyone, except Asera. To her, the city felt empty. The laughter of her friends no longer filled her heart. Even the bright twin moons reminded her of the one far away, where a lonely human worked under cold skies. Every night she checked the communication board, hoping to see his signal again. Sometimes it appeared in a faint pulse, steady and rhythmic. It was his way of saying he was still there. She had learned to reply with her own small transmitter. Her mother thought she was practicing communication codes for her science lessons. But in truth, Asera used those codes to talk to Eli. She would send 2 short pulses, meaning safe, and he would reply with 1 long and 1 short, meaning yes. They couldn't speak words, but even through these small signals, they built something powerful and trust. Then one evening, everything changed. Asera's mother entered her room, her face pale. "There's been a problem," she said quietly. "The moon base lost power. The human may be in danger." Asera stood up quickly. What happened?" "The storm shields failed. A magnetic surge hit the base. We don't know if he survived." Her chest tightened. For a moment she couldn't breathe. "We have to send help." Her mother sighed. "The council won't approve it. They say it's not worth the risk. The human is only one being. Only one." Asera's voice trembled. "He's alive. He saved our transmitter. He reached out to us. How can they just leave him?" But her mother looked helpless. "The council won't listen to reason. They fear what they don't understand. That night, Asera couldn't sleep. She stared at the glowing moon through her window, her heart burning with guilt. She remembered his smile, calm and kind, and the way he had never once shown anger. Even when they locked him away, she whispered to herself, "I can't let him die there." And with that thought, her decision was made. Before dawn, she sneaked into her mother's lab and accessed the docking system. The ships were protected by security codes, but Asera was clever. She had learned from watching her mother's research for years. With a few quick taps, she bypassed the basic lock. She selected a small shuttle, one built for short-range travel. It was meant for scientists, not soldiers, but it could make the trip to the moon. As the engines hummed to life, Asera felt fear crawl up her spine. She had never left Loranes before, but she whispered to herself, "He was alone in our world. Now I will be with him in his." The shuttle lifted silently into the silver sky, leaving behind the glowing towers of her city. The journey took only a few hours, but every second felt like an eternity. When she finally landed on the moon's surface, the view stole her breath away. The horizon was endless, covered in gray dust and glowing blue light from the twin moons above. The base stood half buried under fallen metal and ice. The storm had destroyed the outer walls. Asera wrapped her cloak tightly and stepped into the broken entrance. Inside, the corridors were dark and cold. She activated a small light crystal from her pocket, casting a faint glow on the walls. She called out softly, "Eli?" No answer. Only the sound of wind outside. She kept walking, her boots crunching against the dust. Then in the corner of a shattered control room, she saw movement. A figure sat against the wall, his clothes torn, his arm bruised. But when he looked up, his eyes were still the same. "Eli," she breathed. He stared at her in disbelief, as if thinking she was an illusion. Then he slowly stood, wincing in pain, and said softly, "Asera?" Her heart leaped. He remembered her name. She rushed forward but stopped just short of touching him. "You're alive," she said, her voice shaking. I thought you were gone." Eli smiled faintly. "Tough to kill. Humans." His voice was weak but steady. Asera quickly took a small energy pack from her bag and handed it to him. "Here, for strength." He didn't understand all her words, but he understood her eyes. He took the pack, pressing his hand over hers in thanks. That small touch made her heart tremble again. The same strange feeling she couldn't explain. But there was no time to think about it. "We need to leave," she said. "The storm might return." Together they walked back through the damaged corridors. Asera supported him, his steps slow but determined. When they reached the surface, the twin moons lit their path in cold silver light. But just as they approached the shuttle, a deep rumble echoed across the plain. A storm was returning, this one far worse. Asera looked back at the dark horizon. A wall of glowing dust and lightning was racing toward them. "Hurry," she shouted. Eli tried to move faster, but his injured leg slowed him down. Without hesitation, Asera placed his arm over her shoulders, half carrying him toward the shuttle. The wind roared, the air crackled, and the ground shook beneath their feet. They reached the ramp just as the storm hit. Dust and lightning slammed against the hull. Asera pushed Eli inside and sealed the door. The ship shook violently. Sparks burst from the control panel. She grabbed the controls and shouted, "Hold on!" The shuttle lifted off, fighting against the raging storm. For a moment it seemed they wouldn't make it, but then, with a final burst of power, the engines broke free into open space. Silence. The storm faded behind them, leaving only the stars. Asera leaned back, breathing hard. Eli sat beside her, looking out the window at the shrinking moon. Then he turned to her and whispered, "You came. For me." She nodded, her voice soft. "You came to our world alone. I couldn't let you stay alone again." For a long time, neither spoke. They simply looked at the stars. Then Asera noticed the faint blue light of her home planet growing larger ahead. Her heart filled with relief but also worry. She knew the council would be furious. They might punish her for breaking their laws. Still, she didn't care. Saving a life felt more important than obeying fear. When the shuttle entered Loranes' atmosphere, alarms immediately blared. Guards surrounded the landing bay. As the ramp opened, Asera stepped out first, supporting Eli. Her mother was there, her face pale with shock. "Asera, what have you done?" Asera's voice trembled but stayed steady. "I saved him, Mother."
"He didn't harm us."
He didn't deserve to die alone, the council members whispered among themselves. One elder stepped forward. You risked our safety for an outsider. Do you understand what you've done? Yes, Asera said, meeting their eyes. I understand that he is not our enemy. Eli stood quietly beside her. He didn't understand their language, but he sensed the tension. He raised his hand slowly, palm open, a universal gesture of peace. For a moment, the council chamber was silent. Then Asera's mother stepped beside her daughter and said firmly, He may be different, but he has done nothing to harm us. Perhaps it is time we learn from him instead of fearing him, the crowd murmured. The elder hesitated, then finally said, Very well. He will stay under observation, but no harm shall come to him. Asera felt tears sting her eyes. She turned to Eli and whispered, You're safe now. He smiled faintly, whispering, Thank you. Asera. As the guards escorted them gently to the recovery center, Asera looked up at the twin moons once more. She knew their journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Two beings from different worlds had defied fear and found understanding, and soon, that fragile bond would test the courage of both species. The days after Eli's return to Loranes passed slowly, but every moment was alive with discovery. Asera stayed close, helping him learn the ways of her world. Though he was human, his adaptability amazed the Volari. He learned their language quickly, understood their technology, and even grasped the complex patterns of energy manipulation that the Volari used in daily life. Asera watched him with quiet awe. Every time he solved a problem that had stumped the scientists for years, her chest swelled with pride. And every time he looked at her, a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips, the same calm, kind expression that had first drawn her heart weeks ago. The council, wary at first, began to notice something unusual. Eli's presence did not bring chaos or harm. Instead, he brought new ideas, new strategies, and a fresh perspective. Projects that had stalled for decades suddenly progressed. Machines once thought impossible to repair were working again. Even the Volari soldiers began to admire him, not for strength, but for cleverness, courage, and persistence. One morning, the council called a meeting in the grand hall. Asera stood beside her mother and Eli was escorted in. The hall gleamed with crystal light, casting soft patterns across the floor. The elders sat in their chairs, eyes studying the human carefully. An elder spoke first. This human has shown skills and wisdom beyond what we expected. He has saved resources, repaired critical systems, and endured our world's dangers without complaint. Perhaps our fear was misplaced, another counselor added. It is rare for a species to prove itself in so many ways in such a short time. Perhaps we should reconsider our judgment. Eli stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect, though he did not fully understand the words being spoken. He only knew that he had come to help, not to fight. Asera felt a thrill of pride. She had believed in him from the first day, and now others were beginning to see the truth. Her mother whispered, You did well, Asera. You trusted your instincts. You saw what others could not. But Asera only smiled softly, her eyes drifting to Eli. She knew it was not her courage alone that had mattered. It was their connection, their trust, that had brought change. In the following weeks, the bond between the two worlds began to grow. The Volari studied human ingenuity while Eli absorbed their wisdom. Together, they created new energy shields, improved communication networks, and even began planning exploration missions beyond Loranes' atmosphere. One evening, Asera and Eli stood atop the highest tower of the city. The twin moons glimmered above them, and the wind carried the faint hum of energy flowing through the towers. You've changed so much, Asera said quietly. Eli looked at her, a small smile on his face. I've learned from the best. Her cheeks flushed slightly. No, it's more than that. You've taught us something too. He tilted his head. Me? Yes, she whispered. You've shown us courage, patience, and understanding. Things we sometimes forget in our own world. He reached out and lightly touched her hand. I couldn't have done it alone. For a moment, the wind seemed to pause, the moon shining brighter than ever. Asera realized that this was the same calm feeling she had felt the first time she saw him. Not fear, not confusion, but a deep certainty that their worlds could grow stronger together. Days later, the council announced a formal acknowledgement of Eli's contributions. He was no longer seen as a stranger or outsider. Instead, he was named an honorary member of the Valari Scientific Council. Asera watched as Eli accepted the recognition with humility. The other Valari approached him, shaking his hand or touching his arm, gestures of respect. He had become more than a visitor. He had become a bridge between worlds. Even the soldiers who had once eyed him with suspicion now sought his guidance. His clever strategies for resource management and survival impressed them. In battle simulations, he consistently found solutions that the Valari had overlooked, proving that humanity's resilience was as valuable as their own advanced abilities. Through all this, Asera stayed by his side. Together they explored every corner of Loranes, from the crystal forest that sang with light, to the underground rivers glowing with bioluminescent flora. Eli's laughter, so human and genuine, echoed through the halls and gardens, bringing warmth wherever it reached. One evening, while they were observing a rare meteor shower, Asera turned to Eli. "Do you ever miss your home?" she asked softly. Eli nodded, his gaze fixed on the shooting stars. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But now I feel like I belong somewhere else too. Somewhere, with you and your people." Her heart swelled. She realized that humans and Valari, despite their differences, could understand each other in ways no one had imagined. It was not about strength, speed, or power. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to see beyond fear. Over time, Eli began to train with the younger Valari in problem-solving and survival techniques. Though he lacked their elegance and innate energy control, his persistence and creativity inspired everyone. Children especially were fascinated by him. They would gather around him, asking questions about Earth, about how humans lived, and about how he survived the stars. Asera smiled quietly as she watched them. She realized that he had not just changed her life, but the lives of her entire people. Then came the day when an unexpected threat appeared. Scouts detected a rogue asteroid heading toward Loranes. The city's main defense systems were not prepared for an object of such size. Panic spread among the citizens, but Asera and Eli quickly stepped forward with a plan. Eli had studied asteroid trajectories on Earth. He proposed a combination of Valari energy, shields, and controlled force bursts to redirect the asteroid's path safely. Many in the council doubted the plan, citing the asteroid's unpredictable speed and size, but Asera's unwavering support gave Eli courage. Together they led the operation. Using combined human ingenuity and Valari technology, the asteroid was successfully diverted. The city was saved without a single casualty. The people of Loranes erupted in cheers, and the council officially recognized Eli as a hero. Asera stood beside him, her hand lightly brushing his arm. She felt the same heartbeat connection she had felt the first day they met, a bond that no distance, danger, or fear could break. Later, in a quiet moment, Eli looked at Asera. "You believed in me when no one else did," he said softly. "Because of you, I've found a place I can call home." Asera smiled, feeling the warmth of those words deep in her chest. "And you reminded us," she replied, "that courage and kindness are what make a world truly strong, not just power or fear." Together they looked out over the city, the twin moons casting silver light across the crystal towers. The people below moved with confidence, no longer afraid of the unknown. Humanity and Valari had found harmony, not through conquest or dominance, but through trust, understanding, and bravery. For Asera and Eli, the journey had begun with a single look, a moment that sparked curiosity, courage, and an unbreakable bond. And now, as the stars stretched endlessly above them, they knew this was only the beginning of a future where two worlds could grow together, stronger, wiser, and united by the courage to embrace what was once unknown. The twin moons glimmered, reflecting off the silver towers, and in the quiet night Asera whispered to Eli, "We've done it together." He smiled and nodded. "Together," he replied, and for the first time in history, humans and Valari celebrated not just survival, but friendship, trust, and hope, a proof that even across galaxies, courage, heart, and understanding could unite worlds.